What if I told you that one of the absolute cornerstones of English literature, a book people have been studying for more than 600 years, is basically a medieval road trip story? Seriously, it's got a huge cast of characters, some pretty sketchy motives, and even a storytelling contest. Today, we are talking all about Geoffrey Chaucer's masterpiece, the Canterbury Tales.
So here's our itinerary. First, we're going to jump back in time to the pretty chaotic world of the 14th century that Chaucer lived in. Then we'll properly meet the man himself. From there, we'll get into the brilliant setup for his road trip story, see how it's basically a perfect snapshot of society, and finally, we'll talk about why this ancient poem is still so incredibly relevant today. You know, to really appreciate how revolutionary the Canterbury Tales was, you first have to understand the world it came from. And you can just forget any romantic ideas about a peaceful, quaint medieval life. The 14th century was, to put it mildly, an age of massive crisis and unbelievable change. I mean, just look at this. England was caught up in this brutal, seemingly endless war with France, and then, in 1348, the Black Death shows up, a plague so devastating it killed nearly half the population. Just try to imagine the chaos. That led to huge labor shortages, which actually gave common people more power to demand better lives. And, eventually, it all boiled over into the Peasants' Revolt, a full-blown uprising against the ruling class. This was Chaucer's reality. And right in the middle of all of this, you've got Chaucer. He wasn't some monk writing away in a quiet monastery. He was out in the world, a keen observer, watching and listening as society was basically being remade right before his eyes. His writing is a direct result of living through all that change. So who exactly was this man who documented such a turbulent time? Let's meet Geoffrey Chaucer, a guy with a whole lot of talents, and poet was just one of them. See, Chaucer's main gig wasn't even writing. He was a public servant, diplomat. This meant he was rubbing elbows with everybody, from kings and knights down to merchants and shipmen. It gave him this incredible panoramic view of his world. But here's the really crucial part. He chose to write in Middle English. Now, at the time, all the important literature was written in Latin or French. By using the everyday language of the people, Chaucer was making a huge statement. He was saying that their lives and their stories actually mattered. That was a game changer. You can actually track his evolution as a writer through three pretty distinct phases. He started out influenced by the elegant, courtly poetry of France. Then his travels to Italy exposed him to amazing storytellers like Boccaccio, which totally deepened his work. And finally, he hit his English period, where he took all those influences and created something brand new, something that was all his own. And that, of course, led to the Canterbury Tales. All right, now for the main event. The absolute genius of the Canterbury Tales is its premise. It's so simple, but man, is it effective. Chaucer uses this fantastic literary device called a frame tale. Think of it like this. There's one big story, the frame, which is the pilgrimage itself. And that main story provides the perfect reason to bring a whole bunch of different people together and have them tell their own shorter stories. It's a simple idea, but it's brilliant. So here's the setup. A bunch of strangers all meet up at the Tabard Inn in London. They're all about to set off on a religious pilgrimage to Canterbury Cathedral to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket. Now, for some of them, this was a deeply spiritual journey, and for others, let's be real, it was probably just a great excuse for holiday. Our traveling party has 30 people, and that includes Chaucer, who cleverly writes himself into the story as the narrator. And wow, what a crew it is. You've got a knight, a nun, a miller, a cook, a lawyer. It's a true cross-section of medieval English life. To make the long journey more fun, the host of the inn, a guy named Harry Bailey, comes up with a great idea, a storytelling contest. Each pilgrim has to tell 2 stories on the way to Canterbury and 2 more on the way back. And the prize for the best story? A free dinner when they all get back. The grand plan was for 120 tales in total. But here's the thing. Chaucer never finished it. He died before he could complete this massive project, leaving us with just 24 of the tales he'd planned. And yet, even unfinished, it is an absolute masterpiece that completely changed English literature forever. So, this group of characters isn't just some random collection of people. No, they are the entire point. Chaucer picked each one so carefully to create this living, breathing portrait of his whole world.
What Chaucer is doing here is a popular thing at the time called estate satire. Medieval society was pretty neatly divided into three estates, or classes, and writers just love to poke fun at the stereotypes and the hypocrisies within each group.
And Chaucer's pilgrims represent these three groups perfectly. You've got the nobility who fought, the clergy who prayed, and the common folks who did all the work. From the noble, chivalrous knight to the amazing, larger-than-life wife of Bath, he really does cover the whole social ladder.
Chaucer's satire can be incredibly sly and subtle. Take the prioress, for example. She's a nun, so she's supposed to be completely devoted to God. But Chaucer describes her as this very delicate, fancy lady who wears a beautiful golden brooch with the motto, "Love conquers all."
And that one little detail says everything. It makes you stop and ask, wait, is she talking about the divine love of God? Or is she talking about earthly romantic love? With just one tiny object, Chaucer exposes her vanity and her focus on worldly things. It's a subtle but really sharp critique of the church. He does this all the time, creating these amazing contrasts. On one hand, you get the parson. He is the absolute ideal, a poor but truly holy and good man. And then, on the other hand, you get the pardoner. This guy is a total con artist, shamelessly corrupt, selling fake religious relics just to make a quick buck.
So, after all of this, why are we still talking about a book written in a language we can barely understand from a world that's over 6 centuries old? Well, let's get into its incredible legacy.
You really can't overstate his impact. He proved that English was a language capable of creating great art. He helped popularize the rhythm, iambic pentameter, that a guy named Shakespeare would later make pretty famous. And, most importantly, he gave us characters that feel like real, complex people, flawed, funny, and just completely unforgettable.
And maybe this is the real takeaway. At a time of huge social division and chaos, Chaucer didn't write a story about conflict. He wrote a story about connection. He threw together this messy, diverse, wonderful group of people, put them on the road together, and he celebrated their shared humanity in all its beautiful, messy, and glorious variety. And that kind of leaves us with a fun question, doesn't it? If you were going to do this today, who would you put on that pilgrimage? Who are the characters that would represent the full spectrum of our society? The tech billionaire, the TikTok influencer, the gig economy driver, the politician. It's really a testament to Chaucer's genius that the very same framework he built 600 years ago still works as the perfect way to look at ourselves.